All right, welcome back to another boot camp, and we're getting into the part that I know a lot of you guys have been waiting on. This is where we start talking about conducting your fire actions. Sorry, I know you've been waiting on this, but I'm going in order of the rule book. So it's towards the back. That's when we run into it. Now, this set of videos is going to be broken up into pieces. So to learn the entirety of conducting a fire action, make sure you watch them start to finish. There's just too much to cover to do it all in a single video. Now, obviously, when you're conducting a fire attack, that is using your stats to attack an enemy that you have line of sight to and is in range. Remember, when looking at our units, that the number within like the little red circle there is your firepower, and that superscript is its range. So our American Infantry Squad down here has a firepower of 1 and a range of 3. The SS Squad up here has a firepower of 2 and a range of 2. Now, when it comes to performing a fire attack, you can order multiple units to conduct an attack at the same time, or use things like support weapons like a bazooka or a BAR at the same time as well. So if we had 2 infantry squads here, they could both be ordered to attack the SS squad, but you couldn't use one single impulse to have one infantry squad attack the SS squad and the other attack a different squad. So if you activate multiple units to conduct an attack, they do have to shoot at the same target, with the exception of armored fighting vehicles. They do have some special conditions that will allow them to fire at different targets. So that exception to conducting the attack at the same target will apply, with the exception of things like ordnance weapons, which this bazooka would count even though it is technically attached to the infantry squad, or the heavy weapons for the tank. Their machine guns also have some stipulations as well when it comes to things like their covered arc, but we'll get that into that a little bit more specifically here later on. All right, so let's say instead we've got our 2 infantry squads here, and in this circumstance, if they're both here, one has a bazooka, they could conduct a fire attack against, the SS squad and then use the bazooka against a different target. Let's say, however, though, that both squads have a bazooka. You're only allowed to do that separate targeting with a single ordnance weapon when carried by these infantry squads. So you couldn't take and have them target the SS squad and then fire one bazooka here, one bazooka somewhere else. You would only be able to fire one of the 2 bazookas if both squads were carrying them. When resolving those attacks, they are resolved separately. So this would be an attack, and the bazooka itself would be its own attack. Now, something else to keep in mind is when you have an armored fighting vehicle like this, you see it's got a couple of machine gun values, one that's in a red circle and one that's in a red triangle. The one that's in the red triangle means it can only be fired within the tank's covered arc. We talked about the covered arcs earlier and how they can be rotated around. That red one, the circle, can be fired 360 wherever you want to, but you can only fire that triangle wherever that covered arc is pointing. Also, if that covered arc is changed its direction due to the fire attack that's being performed, that triangle firepower is going to receive a -2 penalty modifier as a result of that. Also, something else to keep in mind is if your AFV happens to be buttoned, then the non-bow mounted, so it means the circle, not the triangle, the circle firepower will be halved, rounded up. So in this case, that would just become a 2, but if the firepower were a 5, you round it down, 2.5, round up to a 3. So I understand this was just a very quick, high flyby of the rules when it comes to conducting fire attacks. The follow-on videos we're going to get into specifically conducting infantry attacks, specifically conducting armored fighting vehicle attacks, how ordnance attacks, all of that is covered. So make sure you understand this is the overview, and we're going to get into those specifics in the next couple of videos.